The Houtman Abrolhos. If you are not from Geraldton, chances are you have never heard the name. Situated roughly 60 kilometers west of mainland Western Australia, this complex and occasionally treacherous archipelago is the southernmost true coral reef system in the Indian Ocean. Made up of 122 islands, the Houtman Abrolhos sits at one of the highest latitudes of any coral reef on Earth. The islands are of enormous economic, environmental, and historical importance to Australia. They are home to the country's most profitable single-species fishery, a nesting site for transient seabird populations, and the backdrop for some of Australia's earliest and most dramatic maritime history. The coral reefs that make up the Abrolhos have claimed the lives of hundreds of sailors and dozens of ships, the most famous of which is the Batavia, a flagship of the Dutch East India Company that ran aground on Morning Reef in June 1629.
It's recognised internationally as one of the most astonishing sagas of shipwreck, massacre, survival, rescue and retribution in maritime history. The story of the wreck's been of enormous interest since details were first published in the early 1640s in a big book called The Unlucky Voyage of the Ship Batavia. It's been the subject of many books, films, even an opera. It's the second oldest known shipwreck in Australian waters. And of course there's lots of other firsts associated with this wreck. The first European buildings on Australian soil. The first description of a wallaby, the Tamar wallaby, which the survivors used for food. The first criminal prosecutions, the first formal executions, the first Europeans on the Australian mainland.
It didn't take long for the early settlers to recognize the bounty the Abrolhos had to offer. With a commercial-scale fishing industry stretching back to the mid-1800s, many generations of families have made their lives and fortunes from harvesting the boundless marine resources in the area. For the past 100 years, the Western rock lobster has provided the backbone of the Western Australian fishing industry. With just over 100 licensed fishermen and their adeckies living and working on 22 of the islands. Over the many generations of human habitation, the shorelines of the Abrolhos have become littered with evidence of all kinds of industry. The scale and origin of the many different types of Flotsam and Jetsam is almost impossible to discern. Due in part to the jagged reefs, tidal shorelines, and twisted mangroves, almost everything that washes up on the Abrolhos stays there. This is compounded by the fact that the islands themselves sit smack bang in the middle of the Lewin Current. These factors combine to create the perfect trap for any Flotsam and Jetsam that happens to be in the area. The Abrolhos Islands are classified as a Class A reserve, and over the past few decades, much has been done to help return many of the islands to their pristine natural state. A relative newcomer to the Abrolhos is pearl farming, with the first license being granted to Murray Davidson in 1997 and the second one to Pia Bachetti in 1998. As the industry grew, Pia became known throughout the Abrolhos as the girl who grows the pearl. Pia cultivates Abrolhos pearls at her farm on Basili. Growing pearls is a lengthy process. Oysters cannot be seeded until they are at least 3 years of age, after which the pearl takes a further 2 years to develop. Once the pearls have been harvested, Pia transports them to Geraldton, where they are transformed at Latitude Jewelers into works of art. Pia believes each pearl has a meaning, each style represents a personality, and each piece is to be treasured for a lifetime. It was a decade into the life of the family pearl farm when Pia decided that she needed to give back to the islands that had given her so much. So Pia gathered some volunteers, commandeered some camps, and steamed off to the Abrolhos.
So, first year you did this, when was it?
2011.
Yeah. What made you decide you wanted to do it?
Well, I've always liked picking up rubbish on the beach, but I've never had, and making things out of it as well. But you know, just a curiosity about what you're going to find. Like I've always wanted to find a note in a bottle.
Pia's initiative, dubbed Flotsam and Jetsam, removes on average 7 tons of foreign material per year from the islands in the Pelset group, all of which has been ferried back to the mainland.
When I said to this girl I was going to do Clean Up Australia Day as part of our business and take some volunteers to the islands, I initially thought it's just going to be fun, like being able to come over here and pick up. Anyway, it was really hard work, and some of the people that are on this trip came on my very first trip, and they all just want to help, and just that in itself is quite special. And then I think one of the reporters from the Geraldton Guardian wanted to do a story on it, and she said, well, what are you going to do with the rubbish? And I said, well, I'm just going to like maybe take it to the tip, you know. And she said, you should give it to the artists. And I thought, oh, that's a good idea. And then I was like, yeah, then we can give it to the artists, and then they can make some artwork, and then I can put it in my shop and exhibit it, because, you know, and if they want to sell it, they can. And the people who enter, they're not, like, we have professional artists that enter, but we also have, like, the stay-at-home mum who loves to be creative or wants to give it a chance. And we have the guy that's a tradie that wants to use his skill as well to combine with Flotsam and Jetsam. So, because one of the categories that we have is you can do a piece which is all rubbish, and then the other piece can be rubbish combined with their own medium. I think that's about enough for today of what we've got going on. Is there anything else you want to say, Maz? So Maz is the skipper.
Basili is known to many of the locals as Little Italy. It is the only island in the archipelago that boasts a church instead of the more traditional pub. Born into a crayfishing family, Pia's affinity with the Abrolhos has been lifelong. Basili has played host to some of the most important events in Pia's life. She was the first baby to be baptized in the island's church. In 2006, Pia would find herself in the very same church, this time to be joined in marriage to Murray Davidson. And years later, they baptized their daughter Olive there as well.
It's a remote area, the Abrolhos Islands. It is a very remote area, but hey, you know, what a fantastic program it is. And each year has gone by, been involved in photographing all the pieces. We've seen amazing pieces of artwork come out of absolute rubbish. And we've noticed each year that although there is still a lot of stuff to clean up that arrives over the course of the year, there are some islands that have got far less rubbish on them because we're doing this regular clean-up on a yearly basis.
The Flotsam and Jetsam initiative now lasts 3 days on average, with the majority of time each day spent combing the islands. The volunteers split into 2 teams and work from different ends of each island to make sure that as much ground as possible is covered. Special care is taken not to disturb the environment. Mangroves and vegetation are looked out for, and any interference with the many seabird nesting sites is strictly forbidden. While there is always plenty of ropes, wire, and plastics to collect, there is also the occasional surprise to be found. On this trip, an oil drum, a basketball, and even a fridge were discovered and removed. In the early years of the initiative, the deck of the business class was filled with rubbish in a single day. More recently, however, in a testament to the effectiveness of the initiative, it now takes 3 days to find enough flotsam to fill the deck. The logistics of organizing, transporting, and feeding this many people for 3 days on a rock in the middle of the Indian Ocean are considerable.
What you've got to take into account is the time of the year for a start. What time of the year is it? Is it summertime when we have a blows and between 30 and 40 knot winds? People getting sick, can they swim? We do inductions on the vessel, tell them all the laws, what we expect of them. Anyone that can't swim, we give them a PFD. Just running this vessel, coming over and back on the islands is probably about 4,000 litres. You know, wear and tear is, you know, it's another couple of grand. There's a few dollars involved in it. Then we use the 2 other boats as well. You know, they're not as bad on fuel because we tow them over. It's probably a good 12 grand for the weekend, you know. Pia this year got a few sponsors and helped to pay a bit of the fuel bill and helps. Every little bit helps, you know, and she's been doing it for a while. So just even walking on the coral, you can fall over and you can cut yourself. You know, we've got first aid kits on board. We've got gloves, everyone's got to have shoes on. You know, you've got to be careful. Even just picking up the bottles, we've got to explain everything because picking up a bottle might have a blue ring inside. You know, don't just think it's nothing in there. Look, every year we load this boat up. She's 23 metres long, the other 2 are 12, 14 metres long. But, you know, it's usually between 7 and 8 tonne. I think the biggest year was about 9 tonne. It's a lot of rubbish. And, you know, as you can see in the islands that we've done before, there's not as much there. It takes longer. We used to just come and do it one day, back over and back in one day. Now it's 3 days to basically get the same rubbish.
At the end of each day, all the trash collected is piled onto the business class. The team then tends to congregate around Pia's camp to relax and enjoy a hard-earned beverage or 2. As the sun dips below the sea, there is an atmosphere of camaraderie and kinship, a jovial air of fulfillment and understanding that a difference can be made when we all band together.
I want to take Uncle Ron's. Hey,
How many people are you expecting to turn out?
Probably, I don't know. I'm hoping for over 200, but we'll see how it goes. I'm looking over there and there's some people already parked in their car. I'm just waiting to get...
In years past, when Pia and her volunteers unloaded the Flotsam and Jetsam in Geraldton, people would come down and pick through the pieces at their leisure. Nowadays, the initiative has grown in popularity so much that the boat must be unloaded at dawn. The artists tend to start arriving an hour or so before the appointed time. They wait, anxiously circling the piles of flotsam as lions circle gazelle. The crowd is made to wait until 8 a.m. in order to give everyone a fair chance at finding the materials they most desire.
So what just happened to you, mate?
Oh, I just got busted for getting in too early. Getting the good stuff.
Oh, no harm in trying.
Yeah.
The stakes are high, as there is always one or two unique prized pieces of flotsam to be snatched up by those most determined.
What's your money on what's going to disappear first?
Oh, look, some of the guys that like doing timber work will come and grab some of the good timber and they'll build something. We've seen chairs being built, king chairs, throne chairs, all sorts of things. A lot of the floats will disappear fairly quickly. The youngsters like to paint the floats, come up with Abrolhos ideas on that. Lots of rope for weaving and creating. Some of the larger pieces end up being structures. Really don't know, because when I get to the judging, I've been judging it for 8 years as well, and you get to the judging, of course, and you just go, wow, how did you make that out of that?
Yeah.
So some people have got some really, really great ideas, and I can't wait to see what we're ending up judging in 4 weeks' time.
When the horn finally sounds, it's a free-for-all.
Well, the rush is over, so now we're going to have a few people, stragglers come along, like, just pick through the remainder of it. So I'm pretty happy that that whole pile of rope is like nearly gone.
Yeah.
And a lot of the plastic bottles have gone, most of the wood's gone. Nah, pretty happy with it all.
So I know some pretty quick movement at the start there.
Oh no, lucky I didn't trip.
Some eye of the tiger going on to get to a certain piece.
Bolted for the drum. Yeah, had our eye on that.
Yeah. What's it going to become, do you reckon?
We're hoping, laying on its side, it's going to be cut into the shape of a wave.
What do we reckon, Carl?
Oh, I reckon it was great, mate. Did you see the stampede?
At the end of the frenzy, little is left, save some ropes and plastic. The rest is hauled away to be transformed into beautiful works of art. Before the art can be judged, it must be photographed. This is done at the studio of a longtime sponsor of the initiative, Carl Monahan.
But at the end of the day, it's all about taking part. It's about contributing to the community, contributing to cleaning things up, contributing to the planet and keeping it cleaner than it was. So this, for example, as Jetsam and Flotsam, allows young children from 4 or 5 years of age to engage in a creative process, engage in working with mundane pieces of plastic, wood, glass, you name it. These are little pieces of the planet as we have made it, and turning it into something creative, and then to be able to have it put on show for the public to see really raises the expectations of individuals, it raises their self-esteem and gives them a great feeling, a sense of place, sense of belonging and a sense of achievement. So, you know, art therapy in respect to this community project is extremely valuable.
Art is a universal form of expression. It doesn't matter who you are, where you come from, or even how old you are. Anyone can create and everyone can engage. Artistic expression is an intensely individual process. Some draw on their professional skill set, while others use their life experiences as a guide.
First come across the drum, saw it on one of the videos when he was loading up over the islands, and I got an idea, I know exactly what I can do with that. First was cut the drum to a rough shape that I thought, hoping that it would hold together, and it did. Yeah, it was on no in particular person or no in particular place, it was just, the barrel.
I just love the colours, and when Peter said to me that it was about Australian icons, those colours, just the bright blue sky and the bright yellow with the red caps, to me was just, yeah, it was just Aussie. The base of it had actually rotted out. In fact, Indiana found these too. There's two of them, and one was broken, and we found them in the mangroves over on Long Island.
It is truly fascinating to see the ideas that fall out of the heads of artists, especially the younger generation.
I thought on Newman's Island about a koala and all the bushfires, and then I thought like I could put a burnt tree with a big koala on it, trying to save himself.
The bird's name is Ted. Ted was a brave bird, but he was always shy. He once heard there was a bushfire coming. He had to do something to stop the bushfire. So he took a drop of water from the lake and dropped it onto the fire. The animals asked, "What are you doing? You can't put out the fire." He said, "Like, doing what I can to stop it." And that's how Ted came.
So when I read that last bit, when they said, "What are you doing?" and he replied, "Doing what I can." And that's a history of Ted. And you think Ted was a hero and is an Aussie icon. Beautiful.
Marina Baker is the coordinator of the Geraldton Art Gallery and has taught art all across WA. She has participated in the judging of Flotsam and Jetsam for many years.
This is a very unique exhibition. It's in the right place at the right time, with the Abrolhos Islands and the Indian Ocean right on our doorstep here in Geraldton. Of course, we're very concerned about the sea, about the natural environment and the creatures within it. When I'm looking at artworks like this, I'm really looking for the artist's creativity in repurposing the materials into an object that moves past what the materials are and shifts into art that lifts us above the problems and perhaps helps us see a way forward. I must say, for me, I really respond to the quirky and humorous artworks. It creates something uplifting out of an environmental problem that's so serious for all of us. I think it doesn't really trivialise it. It really makes us open, makes us prepared to take it on board and to really see what the message is about. People say it must be great being an artist, being creative, having all that fun. And artists do have fun for sure, but often artists are making work that responds to their anxieties, their concerns with the world. And this is our way of speaking about it, to use the materials to create art that help people to come across and consider the issues. You kind of work your way through things as an artist with the materials, with the mediums. So to have an exhibition like this that gives artists the opportunity to respond using all the Flotsam and Jetsam, the rubbish and detritus and everything that ends up in the sea, of actually utilising it to express something beautiful, something uplifting, something challenging, is a great opportunity to the people of Geraldton, and I believe we embrace it and we appreciate it.
Chris Sermon has spent many years out at the Abrolhos, studying the vast array of bird life in the area.
First started going to the Helpman Abrolhos in the 1980s. Started my research projects studying seabirds and the marine environment out there in 1991. So we've just had our 30th consecutive season, which is turning out to be one of the longest continuous projects in Australia. And the great thing about the Labor Day weekend cleanup with Flotsam and Jetsam is that stuff that would otherwise remain on the beach and degrade over time through UV light, so like the hard plastics, the ropes, the netting, the floats and stuff like that, that all breaks down over time, becomes smaller particles, which becomes dangerous for wildlife and things in the marine environment. So that's being removed. There's been a lot of talk about seabirds ingesting marine plastics, and a lot of that's the seabirds eat it at sea, floating objects, they're curious, small bits. They bring it back and they feed it to the chicks, and the chicks then, can't eat proper food and they starve. So they use the material like small fragments of ropes or nets and things like that, which look like colourful bits of seaweed, and they add that to their nests. And so, by removing the material on the shoreline, they're removing that material that's available to the seabirds. Flotsam and Jetsam thing is helping clean up the Helpman Abrolhos, but that it has a feedback loop into different bits of the coast around the state and the world. And by being aware of what's washed up on the beaches and doing, it might seem such a small project, but little steps, baby steps, all lead to a big picture thing, and we're all changing our attitudes towards the marine environment and waste of that. And if people do their small parts, and projects like this are really, really important in raising that awareness, then in the end we're going to see cleaner beaches and a cleaner environment, and that's a win for us and for the environment.
Traditionally, the awards night is a very grand affair, with many scores of humans packed into Pia's gallery. In 2020, however, due to COVID restrictions, a mere fraction of the usual audience was able to attend. This, however, did not take away from the joy felt by those who managed to take home the prizes. In total, there are 7 prizes up for grabs. Each prize carries with it a value of $500, some of which are provided by Latitude Jewelers, while the rest are donated by the sponsors of the initiative. For the artists that choose to enter this exhibition, Flotsam and Jetsam is about far more than any prizes which happen to be on offer. For most, it is a chance for self-expression in a very unique medium, a medium that is itself not only a social good, but is also extremely relevant to the lives of those who live in the region. Once all is said and done, none of this would have been possible without the vision and commitment of one individual.
We should all realise that we can all make a difference, and let's just do what we can. That's pretty boring. That's fucking shit. I don't know. I look at the effects that Flotsam's had, and I just, what I love the most about it is the healing that it has for people who have mental illness. That has struck me the most across all the years, is that when I see entries that people have searched deep into their soul and had a reason why they've made their artwork, and it's beyond plastic, it's beyond any concern for the earth, it's more about their concern for the human race. I was walking around the gallery and a lady said to me, she was just looking at this one piece, and I said, "Oh, is that your entry?" And she said, "Oh yeah, it is, but it's not very good." And I said, "Oh, okay. Well, let me have a look at it," because I hadn't taken a lot of time. So I took just a minute to read it, and what she was it was a little old cray bait basket, and it had like red plastic over the top. She had a spoon, there was a syringe, and a globe. There was a globe on there. And she said it represented because her son was challenged with drug addiction. And when she was explaining it to me, she was crying, and she was sort of embarrassed that her piece wasn't the amazing hand-carved float or wood, but her piece had such an amazing message. And when she was crying there, and I just thought, how amazing is the fact that we collect a bit of rubbish, and these are the sort of things that are happening with it when people get the opportunity to turn something that's not worth anything into a piece like that that meant so much to her and to me. When I read it, it was really moving, and that drives me so much to continue on with Flotsam.